I've done timber work for many years and resisted buying a compound miter saw, but a few months ago I had to build a shed and also some external stairs. To do that, I bought the Milwaukee M18 FMS 305 12-inch compound miter saw, and I also bought the DeWalt DE7033-XJ miter saw stand. They are a great combination together. Join me in this video as I walk you through the features. This is a DeWalt DE7033-XJ miter saw stand. I bought this stand to support a Milwaukee M18 FMS 305 compound miter saw. The length of the bench is 1 meter, and with the arms fully extended on the left and right, it's a total of 2.5 meters. I have used this stand with the Milwaukee compound miter saw for a few months now, and I love it. I've been doing a lot of DIY timber work for many years without miter saws. My only regret is I should have bought the stand and the compound miter saw much earlier. They are fantastic combination. To retract the arms, just push them in and then turn the handle to lock. The same thing on the other side, pull the arm in and turn the handle to lock. Again, to extend the arms, unlock the locking handle, extend the arm out. At the end of the arms there are support stands, and these stands can be adjusted vertically. There is a stopper. This stopper allows the timber to move right up to the edge. If you do not want to use the stopper, just turn it downwards and the timber can be extended out on the platform. I think this brand and model of the support ends is pretty rigid, and that's what I wanted. What I'll do next is carry the 12-inch Milwaukee compound miter saw and mount it to the saw stand. I'm going to carry that compound miter saw from the table there and mount it to this miter saw stand. That compound miter saw is not light, it's 21.5 kilograms. Okay, it's clicked in. I'm just gonna check. That's the clamp. Yeah, it's clamped in. I would hate for this to fall backwards. And as I said, it's not light. It's 21.5 kilograms. You see here, my compound miter saw is mounted to the DeWalt support. Red and yellow. When I evaluated miter saw stands to buy, I look at the Milwaukee miter saw stand versus the DeWalt and other brands, and in my opinion the DeWalt was better because of the ends. They seemed more stable. I will give you a walk around of the compound miter saw mounted on the saw stand. The DeWalt saw stand has legs that are fixed in length. In this case, I've had to put a piece of timber. Here is a close-up of the saw stand support ends. You use these clamps to adjust the height of the support ends, and this is the stopper that you can put downwards if you just want the timber to push through. That is the lock to lock the arms from extending or retracting, and you can see it looks very robust. This is the frame to mount to the miter saw so that I can clamp this to the DeWalt miter saw stand. That's the hand clamp to lock and unlock the frames from the stand itself. This just give you an overview. Later I'll go into details of the features of the Milwaukee 12-inch compound miter saw. Alright, let's start our review of the Milwaukee M18 FMS 305 cordless compound miter saw. It's a 12-inch blade. It weighs 21.5 kilograms without the battery, so that is not light. It is heavy to carry. And dimensions, it is 820 millimeter wide, about 840 millimeter deep, and the height with the 6mAh battery is 470 millimeter tall. Let's start with the basic. The M18 battery slides in here. It takes one battery. To unlock the slide, loosen this lock screw and it slides in and out. First, let me explain that before I bought this Milwaukee M18 12-inch cordless miter saw, I also considered the Bosch 18-volt gliding miter saw. The advantage of the Bosch gliding compound miter saw was that without a sliding arm, it took up less space in the back, so you can push it right up to a wall. For me, the deciding factor was that the Bosch gliding miter saw had too many moving parts in the gliding arm, and that means to me that it's a complex system, and complex systems have a higher risk of failure. So I opted instead for Milwaukee's straight, simple sliding compound saw, and I'm happy with the decision. Next, to allow the saw head to move up, you just need to push down on the saw so that pressure is released from this lock pin, and then you pull the pin out and release, and the spring under this axle allows it to rise on its own. First things first, how would you change the blade? You raise the blade cover and it locks in the position. Then you take the Allen key, which is stored in the back of the right hand side fence, and you put the Allen key into that nut. On the right hand side there's a thumb push, and you push the thumb lock and it locks the blade. Then you use the Allen key to turn and unlock the blade. Very simple. For safety, while I'm talking about the features, I'm just going to remove the battery. We'll start with the most fundamental. How do you operate and adjust to different miter settings? Just to demonstrate, it's pointing at 0 degrees where there's an indent. I lift the indent lock, move it to the left and release the lock, and then it's free to move, and it will lock itself into the next indent, which in this case is 15 degrees. I'll leave the indent lock again, release the lock and rotate, and it will lock into 22.5 degrees, 22.5 degrees. Lift the indent lock again and move, and it will lock into the next position, 31.6 degrees. So the indents are located at the common angles. Lift the indent lock again, release it, and it locks at 45 degrees. The last indent to the left is 55 degrees. I can do the same for the right hand side. The range of angles on the right hand side is from 0 degrees to a maximum of 60 degrees, and there are various indent positions as well. Now let's look at the levers that allow the miter to lock in the position. This is the miter lock. When you lock this, it cannot move left or right, so let me demonstrate that. It's out of miter, I can move easily, but once I push the miter lock, it will not move. Lift it up, that releases the mitre lock and it can move. If I move it left, it moves into the nearest indent position. In order to move the mitre into another indent position, my thumb and palm hold the top and my 3 fingers lift this bottom lever, which is the indent lock. When I lift it, it's spring loaded, so I need to lift it continuously if I want the indent lock to be released. When I release it, it can move out of the indent. When I lift the indent lock, I'm able to move the mitre left or right, as long as I keep my finger lifting upwards on that lever. If I release that lever, it will lock into the next indent position, which in this case was 15 degrees. So to get it out of that position again, I can lift the indent lock and move. With the finger constantly applying pressure, it can move anywhere. If I release the indent lock again, it will lock into the next indent position like that. If I want to disable the indent lock mechanism without keeping my fingers on this constantly, what I can do is lift this indent lock, then turn this knob clockwise and release the indent lock. What that does is it locks the indent lock and I can freely move the mitre. When I want to use the indent lock again, I just need to squeeze on the indent lock lever and it releases that lock nut. Next, let's look at the bevel adjustment. The bevel can move a maximum of 45 degrees left or 45 degrees right. This is the bevel pointer and that's the bevel markings. I presently have the bevel locked. To move the bevel left or right, I need to unlock the bevel lock. This is the bevel lock. It's located on the rear of the miter saw. It's a big knob. Loosen it and that will allow the miter saw to turn left. When you have set it to the correct angle, you will need to come back and manually lock this bevel lock again. When rotating the bevel to the left, there are 2 bevel stops. One is set for 22.5 degrees and the second one is set for 33.9 degrees. So if you want it to be set to 22.5 degrees, just push that bevel stop out. And so when you rotate the compound saw, that bolt hits that stop and it stops at 22.5 degrees. Push it up. If you want 33.9 degrees, push that stop out, and when you rotate, that bolt hits the 33.9 degree stop, and that's the angle set. Very simple, but simple is good. To rotate the miter saw to the right hand side, I will need to pull this lock bolt out and then I will be able to turn the miter saw right hand side. And then when I pull it back to the center, it will lock again by itself. When I rotate the miter saw to the right hand side, there are also bevel stops. The first one on the top is also marked for 22.5 degrees and the second one on the bottom is 33.9 degrees. So if I want to set 22.5 degrees, I push it out. Then when I rotate right hand side, that bolt hits that stopper and sets it to 22.5 degrees. If I want 33.9, that's 33.9 degrees. Whilst we're at the rear of the miter saw, this is the location on the right hand side. On the back of the right hand side fence where the Allen key is stored. It's just a simple rubber grommet. You push it in and it holds it by tension. Back to the front of the miter saw, there is a dust bag. Very simple but effective. With the zipper opening at the top, allows the bag to be empty. On the right hand side, there is a screw which is a depth stop. If I want to use the stop gauge, I will need to turn this and then you'll see that the screw can be adjusted to a depth that you want. This is the dust scoop. I've damaged it because when you have a big block there and it's pushed upwards, it will cut into the rubber. So that's a bit of caution for you. There is a fence on the left and the right and a clamp, but I don't actually like the clamp. I think it's a bit painful to use. So this is the fence on the right You just have to be careful to move them out of the way so you don't end up hitting it when you're doing a bevel cut. The features on the control handle. That's a switch for the LED shadow light. It doesn't use the laser, it uses a bright LED light that casts a shadow on the blade. The theory is that shadow light is more accurate than laser lights, which needs to be calibrated. However, I have found that the shadow light is not great in bright daylight. This is the trigger handle for the motor. If you push this by itself, it would not activate. There's a safety catch. Need to push this safety catch, so when your hand wraps around it, it closes this catch and then the motor will spin. This Midas saw has a one-key Bluetooth function. I have a piece of timber here and I've turned on the LED shadow light. I hope it comes out okay in the video, but I'm under the shade. The day is cloudy and that's the shadow light. And if it was bright daylight, I've experienced that I can't actually see the shadow light. So whilst the benefit of a LED shadow light is that it does not need calibration, which a laser light does, it is a bit faint for my satisfaction. I will do a simple cut of a block here, and it took a few spins to get this clamp to the height that allows me to clamp the timber. As I said, it's just painful to use, a bit fiddly. Takes too long to get it to the correct adjustment. Alright, we'll just do a simple straight cut. Nice clean cut. Do another cut. I'll do a bigger block. It's a treated pine 100mm by 100mm post. We'll just do a simple cut. There you go. Nice and smooth. To cut. Do another one. There you go. I'll demonstrate a left hand bevel cut. So I have to go back, unlock the bevel lock, turn the saw to an angle that I want. I'll set it at 15 degrees. Looking at the gauge there. Then I'll lock the bevel clamp. Come back to the front and just do a simple cut across this section. There. Well, that's a simple overview and demonstration of the capabilities of this Milwaukee M18 FMS 305 12-inch compound miter saw. I love it. I should have bought something like this years ago. I used it a lot in the last year. I think it's a great cordless tool, and with high capacity 18-volt lithium batteries, it will last many cuts. And when I combine the saw with this DeWalt miter saw stand, it's brilliant. Take it anywhere, don't need a power cord, and it will cut major timber for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more and to help the channel grow. Thank you so much.